Artemi Panarin has been a complete disappointment. Like,
yep.
At what point, do you start getting rid of these guys? I would look into moving Panarin this offseason.
That's going to happen. I'm saying it outright. That's going to happen.
I said this last night on Twitter. I said that, I think this is the type of year where Chris Drury is going to have another conversation with this guy. And we know that he had a conversation before the start of last year. And he basically kind of reamed Panarin out and was like, hey, you need to be better. Like, you need to be better. We need more from you. And I do think that Chris Drury is going to go to Artemi Panarin and is going to say, we're changing things up here. Like, we're not going to re-sign you. And I think if Artemi Panarin is smart, he sees the writing on the wall and says, you know what? All right, you're not going to re-sign me? Trade me in the offseason right now. And I agree with Matt here. It is time. No, not that. It's time to move on. It's time to move on. I think that goes for Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad as well.
I still think good luck with Mika Zibanejad. However, Chris Kreider is going to get moved. That's definite because they gave the money to Alexei Lafreniere and Igor Sturgeon.
Once Chris Kreider is moved, I think that opens up a door for Mika Zibanejad. I really do. I'm not saying it's guaranteed. Mm-hmm. Nothing's guaranteed. But I do think that opens up a door, and I think that's really gonna hurt him. That's his best friend, and that's when I think that he's like, okay, you know what? Maybe things are changing here, and that's it. But I think this offseason is going to be a massive, massive offseason for this Rangers and team in terms of moves.
Let me ask you this question, and it's really the question I've kind of been going back over and over, and I'm pretty sure every Ranger fan in the chat, by the way, we have 350 of you watching right now. Thank you very much, guys. Is Chris Drury the GM that should be making those decisions?
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, for me personally, I would purge everything, including him. I think he's a part of why this team has had the trouble that's had this year. I think he messed a lot of things up. I think if he's making moves like this right now, I don't think they're going to be moving on from him this offseason. I think if they were going to do this and they were going to move on from him, they would have hired a new general manager already by now, and they would have given him time to come in and make those moves. So otherwise, the only other thing I could see is if they go and they fire him right at season's end, and they give that crew enough time to come in, and I'm talking like April. I'm not talking June. I'm talking April. Like once the season ends, and let's just say they don't make the playoffs, or if they make the playoffs and when they get knocked out, then they go ahead and they fire him and they bring in a new regime to start making those decisions. Because you got to remember, the new regime is going to go ahead and make draft picks at this year's draft or trade those picks. So you're going to need a scouting staff to come in and make their decisions, identify the guys that they want to get. And then you've got to go and you bring in, a group of people that are going to have the minds to make the moves to shape the direction of this franchise going forward. So it's a big decision to make, but I just feel like if they were going, maybe I'm wrong and it's something that happens, like I said, at the end of the season, but I feel like he wouldn't be making these moves if he didn't have some sort of future.
I'm torn on this a lot. And the fact that I'm torn on this, I was pretty much a Drury guy because I was an apologist for him because I thought Gorton saddled him with just dead weight. Jacob Trouba was dead weight a month into his contract. And looking at him now, then that the other thing also kind of to get at was Gorton built a finesse team. Drury doesn't want a finesse team.
Nope.
and he's been trying to make them a little bit more sandpaper and stuff like that. And yeah, I know I'm using the euphemisms that you always hear about stuff like that, but now he doesn't have Barclay Goodrow, and he's trying to make the Rangers a tougher team to play against. It's just, I look at what he kind of did with the youth, and I'm not happy with it. And that's one of those things. That's just one of those things I have trouble going back and forth on.
Hi, buddy.
And I love the analogy. I love using the term.
Richie's right here. Lindgren was aging like milk on a sidewalk. It was no doubt. But Rich over here was also right about this. How Drury did that, and that's what I was referring to before.
Yes.
Absolutely monkey wrench this season, 110%. Should he be fired for that? I mean, that's a good question, and that's something that the higher ups are going to make, whether it's Dolan or whether Sather's in Dolan's ears still. We don't know. I don't know.
And I understand what Matt's saying right here, where he's saying Drury wanted Sandpaper, but he brought on the wrong Sandpaper guys. No, Barclay Goodrow was a very good player.
Totally agreed on that. Totally agreed.
That and Reeves was good for what he was when he was there.
Yeah.
However, Patrick Nemeth was never the answer.
No, Patrick Nemeth was never the answer. I like the Goodrow signing, but again, on the very stream when they signed him, the very first stream that we did after they signed him, I said that they needed to win on one of three fronts with that contract. Needed to win on AAV or term or trade protection. And they lost on all three. And that was the biggest problem I had. I liked the player. I didn't like what they gave him. And then Reeves, you know what? For what they brought him in to do, yes, they needed a guy like that because they needed a guy to say, hey, you know what? Nobody's going to mess with our guys right now. And even though Reeves really couldn't play much anymore, he was still a presence there and something in the locker room too. Guys like that can help change the morale in a locker room. And that's something that I think a lot of fans don't understand because they don't get to see it the way that we do sometimes. Like, sometimes they'll give you that insight, but a lot of times you don't see it. So,
and Phil, just to go further into that, what you're saying, it was right after the Tom Wilson incident.
Yes.
And the Rangers needed to have that guy to stick out his chest to go, you're never doing that again. I don't care. So,
well, one of the things I said about that was that when you bring in a guy like Ryan Reeves, like everybody starts like chest out, muscles flexing, everything like that, because they know they got a guy that's got their back. So, you don't need to ruin my dreams anymore. Please, I know Brady is not coming here unless he requests a trade, but you know what? You never know. So we'll watch Ottawa, but if Capo Caco...
Oh, shit. Thomas Hurdle to Vegas.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Come on. You gotta be kidding.
Are you kidding me?
Are you kidding me?
What?
This is stupid.
Your ideas are intriguing to me, and I wish to subscribe to your newsletter.